Welcome to TimeCoins, where history is not just remembered, but reborn through the timeless stories hidden in the smallest pieces of metal. Today, we journey back to the year 1946, a year filled with tension, transition, and the final echoes of an empire that once ruled over a quarter of the world. In our hands lies a coin, the 1946 India Half Rupee bearing the portrait of King George VI. It is a modest coin in size, but within its nickel surface lies the story of a nation on the edge of independence and a king who would soon lose his imperial crown over the Indian subcontinent. The 1946 half rupee marks the last chapter of British India's monetary identity, a bridge between colonial authority and the birth of a sovereign nation. When one holds this coin, one is holding a witness to the closing days of the Raj, the final heartbeat of the British Empire in India. The man whose face adorns this coin, King George VI, never expected to become a monarch. Born Albert Frederick Arthur George Windsor in 1895, he was the second son of King George V. His elder brother, Edward VIII, was the heir apparent, but after Edward's abdication in 1936 to marry Vala Simpson, a twice-divorced American woman, the crown unexpectedly fell upon Albert's shoulders. Shy, soft-spoken, and struggling with a stammer, he accepted the throne with humility and courage, adopting the regnal name George VI to symbolize continuity and duty. By the time this 1946 coin was minted, George VI had already steered his empire through the devastation of World War II. He had become a symbol of endurance, the king who stayed in London during the Blitz, the monarch whose quiet dignity inspired millions. Yet despite victory in war, his realm was fracturing. The winds of freedom were blowing strong across Asia and Africa, and nowhere were they stronger than in India. In 1946, the British Raj was in its final year of full operation. The Indian National Congress and the Muslim League were locked in, political negotiations and protests, demanding self-rule and constitutional clarity. British officials knew that their days of dominion were numbered. Still, the Royal Mint continued its duty of producing the coins that fueled everyday commerce across this vast colony. The half rupee of 1946 was among those coins minted in Bombay and Calcutta, the two major centers of Indian coinage at the time. Each piece emerged from those mints as a small yet official testament to the still standing British rule, bearing the legend George VI King Emperor. This title, King Emperor, reflected not only the monarch's reign over Britain, but also his imperial sovereignty over India, authority that had begun in 1877 with Queen Victoria's proclamation as Empress of India. By 1946, that grand title was on the verge of extinction. The 1946 half rupee was part of the post-war coinage system. Earlier issues under George VI, from 1938 through 1945, had been made of silver, continuing the tradition of precious metal currency. However, the massive wartime expenditure of Britain had depleted reserves of silver. To sustain minting at lower cost, the composition of Indian coins changed. The half rupee was struck in nickel rather than silver, making it more durable but less valuable intrinsically. Despite this shift, its craftsmanship remained meticulous. The obverse featured a left-facing effigy of King George VI, finely engraved. Wearing the imperial state crown, around his portrait ran the inscription, George VI King Emperor, clear and authoritative. The reverse depicted the denomination within an ornate wreath of Indian floral motifs, roses, thistles, shamrocks, and lotus petals symbolizing the unity of the empire and its colonies. The words Half Rupee India 1946 were inscribed at the center. Simple yet elegant, a design that blended imperial pride with subtle artistry. Mint marks on these coins are significant to collectors. Pieces from the Bombay Mint often carry a small diamond symbol below the date, while those from Calcutta are typically unmarked. Because 1946 was among the final years before independence, both mints produced substantial numbers, though exact figures remain debated among numismatists. What is certain is that these coins circulated widely during the twilight of British rule, and after 1947, They continued to serve as legal tender under the Dominion governments of India and Pakistan until newer national designs were introduced. Beyond its metallic value, the 1946 half rupee serves as a tangible artifact of an empire's complexity. To understand its place in history, we must remember that the Indian rupee had long been a symbol of both economic power and political control. Under British rule, the rupee evolved from a Mughal-inspired silver standard into a modern decimalized system managed by colonial authorities. Each coin issued carried not only currency value but imperial legitimacy. The ruler's image was a reminder of authority. The George VI coinage of 193847 represented the final iteration of that tradition. When India achieved independence on the 15th of August 1947, a new era began, and the very idea of money was redefined to reflect national sovereignty. Coins bearing the British monarch's portrait gradually disappeared. Yet the 1946 half rupee remained in circulation for a few more years as the new government of India transitioned toward its own designs featuring the lion capital of Ashoka. That continuation gives this coin a unique dual identity. It belongs both to the colonial past and to the dawn of independent India. Economically, the half rupee played an important role in daily life. At the time, 1 rupee was subdivided into 16 annas, each anna into 4 pice and each pice into 3 pies. The half rupee, therefore, equaled 8 annas, a substantial amount in 1,946. It could buy a day's worth of vegetables, several bus rides, or a few liters of milk. Its presence in everyday transactions linked all social classes from the working poor to the British bureaucrats, who still drew their salaries in rupees. From a numismatic perspective, the 1946 issue stands out as a bridge between silver and base metal coinage. For collectors, that transition period is extremely important. Earlier George VI half rupees from 1938 to 1945, struck in silver, are valued for their intrinsic metal content. The 1946 nickel version, however, represents technological and economic adaptation. It signaled the empire's attempt to maintain monetary stability in the face of global metal shortages and post-war inflation. This practical shift, though subtle at the time, marked the beginning of modern coinage trends across the Commonwealth. For historians, coins like this serve as miniature documents. They bear dates, titles, and designs that reflect the political and economic conditions of their age. The 1946 half rupee, struck just 1 year before independence, embodies the contradictions of a dying empire: continuity in design, yet uncertainty in destiny. Each piece minted carried the words King Emperor, though within a year that title would be erased from Indian coinage forever. When India became a republic in 1950, the symbolism of coinage changed entirely. The new rupees bore the lion capital inscriptions in Hindi and a sense of national identity free from colonial echoes. But among collectors and historians, the coins of 1946 remain a poignant reminder of the moment when one era ended and another began. Even now, in 2025, nearly 8 decades later, the coin retains its fascination. Collectors verify its authenticity by checking weight, diameter, and magnetic response. Genuine pieces show crisp lettering, clear wreaths, and the king's defined crown. Counterfeits are rare but exist, so experienced numismatists value provenance and grading. International grading services classify mint state examples with designations like MS60 to MS65, commanding prices up to several thousand rupees or more depending on demand. The market has seen steady appreciation because such coins are finite, and historical interest only grows with time. And so, as we close this exploration, let us remember that every coin has 2 sides, one of history and one of hope. The 1946 half rupee perfectly balances them. It teaches us that change is inevitable, but legacy endures. The metal may dull, but the meaning never fades. This has been your journey into the story of the 1946 India Half Rupee King George VI's final coin of empire and India's first coin of freedom. I hope this exploration helps you see coins not just as currency, but as chronicles written in metal. Thank you for traveling through time with us. You're watching TimeCoins, where every coin tells a story. Thanks for watching TimeCoins.